changed,
somebody
so
called on
it's
this
6.
window, startled us, and I picked it up, said, hello, and the guy says, said, I just sold, I'm not a real estate agent, but I just sold my house and I was looking to buy a house in your
That
neighborhood.
goes to some places where you
And
This
I
went
said,
straight to you?
the
and I
time
said,
change can
well,
come
it's
in,
her phone. And I said,
and you go into the office,
do you
all
know
of a
what
sudden
neighborhood
everything
this
is set
person
an
lives
hour
in?
off. It was like, shit,
He
that's
said, Sun City. And I says, no, she's in heaven. Are you buying clouds?
Wow. What a nice way of saying it.
Yeah. I think you're buying clouds.
That's a,
what do you want on this? I give you that. No, oh, well, we're missing this. No, you can't. But yeah, she comes over. There's one that was July the 27th. It was done all the documenting for construction turned in now. And it's on the 27th. And they had filed it in a different account.
there.
But they found it, so they said a week.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the regular November 6th, 2018 meeting of the Chino Valley Planning and Zoning Commission. Would you please lead us in the pledge, Commissioner?
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Armstrong,
Here.
Commissioner Welker,
Here.
Commissioner Bacon,
Here.
Commissioner Alternate Geary,
Here.
Commissioner
Thank you.
Meters,
Thank you.
Here.
Vice Chair Pasiak,
Here.
Chair Merritt,
Here.
and I'm noting John McCafferty is absent.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move forward to item 4A, consideration and possible action to approve the October 2nd, 2018 regular meeting minutes. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, on 6A,
Speak into the mic there, would you?
on 6A, the person that moved it was not me, it was John McCafferty, I believe.
Okay, so we need to make that change.
That'll be changed for next meeting.
We'll have to, also we have to confirm that that's actually accurate, so,
Yes. I'll listen to the tape again.
all right. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, so we're gonna push off the approval of the minutes to the next meeting pending a correction. We'll move forward to item 5, staff reports. Alex, do we have some stuff?
Good evening, Chair, Commission. Just a few notes or a heads up for next planning and zoning meeting scheduled for December. We'll have 3 items on the agenda. One of them is for Prescott, City of Prescott. They have a well site south of the rec center, south of Perkinsville. They're coming in, they're expanding the building. They're not changing any of the machinery inside. They're just expanding the building. They're asking for a conditional use permit. So look forward for that. There's also 2 rezoning cases along State Route 89, west of 89. Lantana Plaza, south of Lantana Plaza. Both of them are CL to CH, commercial light to commercial heavy zoning request. Other than that, if you recall, back in March, we had a planning and zoning meeting mixed in there with a study session. We had 3 study session items, I believe that night. One of them was a Center Street duplex, south of the high school on Center Street, east of Center Street, and State Route 89. I believe they were requesting 18 units, 9 duplexes and 18 units. That kind of was on the halt throughout the year, but they're coming back. So you'll see that item probably in February, probably in March. So those are the items that are going to be coming before you in the next coming months.
Thank you. Also, just to make an announcement, Jason Shanks, who was the town planner, is no longer providing that service for the town of Chino Valley. He's moved on to do other things. We wish him well. He was a great asset to the community here. Okay, so we're going to come to the next part of the meeting, item 6A. I am going to recuse myself from that portion of the meeting. I'm going to get up and walk out that door, and Vice Chair Pasiak's going to take over and move forward with that item.
Under the public hearing, item 6A is consideration and possible action to approve ordinance 18-855 to rezone 1.74 acres of real property generally located on the northeast corner of North Road 1 West and Reyes Road at 920 Reyes Road from AR5 agricultural residential 5-acre minimum zoning to SR 1.6 single family residence 1.6 acre minimum. Is there any comments?
Vice Chair, Commission, before you have this item, rezone request for Mr. Phil Brown. This is a simple item. He is requesting to rezone his property from the AR5 zoning district to the SR.16 zoning district. The subject property is located on the northeast corner of North Road 1 West and Reyes Road at 928 Reyes Road. The subject property is not within the subdivision, or a plotted subdivision, I should say. This item is unique in nature because this property, along with the other properties to the north and to the northeast here, are what we consider legal non-conforming lots, meaning that if you see here on the zoning map, this whole area in the darker yellow are in the AR5 zoning district. I believe the only one that meets that classification is this lot that's right here, that's about 7 acres. These lots, I would say this is about 1.6 acres. These are give and take 2.2 acres, both of these. And this one is about an acre and a few quarters. So these are, again, considered legal non-conforming lots. Records show that these lots were not subdivided. We don't have any records that show that these were subdivided. I believe that these lots were incorporated that way when the town was incorporated back in the 70s. So Mr. Phil Brown came in and requested to rezone his property. The reason why is he just wants the right zoning classification on said property. The closest zoning district that we could find was the SR 1.6 zoning district. His property is 1.7 acres, so this is the closest zoning district that will fit with the acreage of said property. Rezoning of the property is not going to have a negative impact on surrounding properties. All it's going to do is it's going to give it the right zoning classification. So staff recommends the planning and zoning forward a recommendation of approval to town council to approve ordinance 18-855. The applicant is here. If the commission have any questions for him or for myself.
Are there any comments from the public? If not, I entertain a motion. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Vice
Chairman.
Chair, I move to recommend approval to town council of this request to rezone 1.7 acres of real property located on the northeast corner of North Road 1 West and Reyes Road at 920 Reyes Road from AR5 agricultural residential 5-acre minimum to SR 1.6 single family residential 1.6 acre minimum.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to have a question first regarding this project. There were another lot next to it that's similar in size. Did the adjacent property owner, Alex, wish to also rezone their property?
No, we have not had any contact with the property owner adjacent to said property or the properties to the north. This is these type of cases when we have legal non-conforming lots, we only go forward with these action items when the applicant requests it. I don't know if it has to do with real estate issues or whatnot. Let me just fill in the commission on how we treat these legal non-conforming lots. With these legal non-conforming lots, let's say Mr. Phil Brown's is a perfect example of it because he is a legal non-conforming lot based on the zoning district. If he comes in and applies for a building permit, we're not gonna deny him a building permit just because he has a legal non-conforming lot based on the zoning district. Simply what we do is we treat it as if it was a AR5 zoning district, and therefore he needs to abide by the development standards set forth by the AR5 zoning district, even though he has a 1.7 acre lot. I don't know if the building setbacks is probably gonna affect them. That's probably why some of these applicants come in and try to make their lots into conformance with the right zoning district, so they can abide by the development standards that are created for said district. But to answer your question, no, the property owner adjacent to him has not contacted us. If he ever does, we will have the same process as we did with Mr. Phil Brown. Again, it's something that needs to be initiated by the property owner.
Thank you.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion's carried. We'll need to get the chair back in here.
I'll check and see if he's out there.
Did you go look at that?
Hmm?
You go look at that one? That door on that one too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 6B, consideration and possible action to approve the ordinance 18-857 to rezone 2 acres of real property located approximately 612 feet north of the northeast corner of Red Cinder Road and Chino from AR5 agricultural residential 5-acre minimum zoning district to SR2 single-family residential 2-acre minimum zoning district. Owner of record, Thomas G. Romanek and Princess C. Romanek. Alex?
I believe that's romantic.
Excuse me. I stand corrected.
So this is a similar case that we have. Last presentation I had, I did state that the property was not in a subdivision. Similar cases with this one. This property is located on approximately quarter of a mile east of southeast corner of Nose Road 1 West and West Road 4 North. We have here a lot that's approximately, sorry about that. About 2 acres, or exactly 2 acres. This property is also not in a subdivision, and when I mean a subdivision, if we looked at Phil Brown's aerial view, you can see the difference between what's a plotted subdivision and what's not a plotted subdivision. Give me just a minute. So usually when property is rezoned in order for it to become a subdivision, you see something as in Granada's Estate subdivision over here in Chino Valley Estates, where it goes through the plotting process, where through the pre-plat and final plat, it's determined the lot sizes of the properties within that subdivision. And you see road improvements as far as roads and sidewalks and drainage easements and that sort of stuff. So that's what I mean as a subdivision. And then when when a property is within a subdivision, we don't see these type of issues where we have legal non-conforming lots, because all set lots within a subdivision are the same lot size. If it's in an SR1 zoning district, the whole subdivision are one acre lots. So that's what I mean, that it's not within a subdivision. So again, Mr. Romanic's property is not within the subdivision. Records show that these properties have been subdivided in the past. We see here properties that are legal non-conforming here within the strip. Right here, these are in the AR5 zoning district. Obviously, you can see that these are 1 acre lots. This one is about, give or take, 7 acres. This one was 3 acres at one point, and then got subdivided into what we see now as a 2 acre and a 1 acre piece. And these lots here to the south are legal non-conforming lots. So again, Mr. Romanic has submitted an application and has requested to rezone his property to the SR2 zoning district in order for him to meet the development standards of his lot size, meaning he wants to abide by the SR2 zoning districts. Staff believes that from the research that staff has done, that the SR2 zoning district is not going to have a negative impact on the surrounding properties. All we're trying to do here is put the right zoning district on the lot size that meets 2 acres. So staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to Town Council to adopt ordinance 18-857 to rezone Mr. Romanek's property to the SR2 zoning district.
Anybody have any questions for Alex while he's up at the podium?
I do. Once again, Alex, this land division, can you tell me when it occurred?
This land division, the subdivision of land,
It was probably a land split. It's not a subdivision, but when did it occur?
the land division.
Yeah.
So this is something unique that happened, and maybe Mr. Romanek can give more details about it. But this property was supposed to be subdivided sometime in 2007, and it never got recorded until the change of ownership. And this property never went through the town, meaning that we never received an application for it. At this point, Mr. Romanek purchased the property, and we can't make the current property owner pay for something that the past property owner did.
I understand that, but when we say it's legal non-conforming, actually it was not done legally to begin with, and I don't want to put any burden upon the present property owner. But has the county been reviewing these land divisions to any particular extent? In my past experience, the owner would just submit it to the county would record it, and that's all there is to it. But don't they submit anything to the town jurisdiction to notify the town that such a recording has taken place? And if it doesn't meet the city zoning requirement standards, that the planning department or the town council would then notify the person that the recording in the land division does not meet town standards?
As you said, that if the recorder's office in Yavapai County records any document that you take. In the past, Development Service Director used to approve these lot splits by signing the Mylars. But if Yavapai is taking any document and they're recording it, there's no way for us to regulate it. The only way that we could regulate it is if we identify an illegal lot split that wasn't, that didn't come through the proper procedures or staff didn't review, then we have the power to hold a building permit. We anything that's 2.5 acres or less needs to come through us, through the town, for us to review and approve. Anything 2.5 acres and more, it's highly recommended that they come in and submit the proper application, the land division application.
So, what is the property immediately to the north? Does it have a house on it at the present time?
Yeah, it's right there.
Now, so how large is that property? I take it it's about maybe an acre and a half?
It's an acre. This was a 3-acre property that, like I said, by law, they don't have to come through the town if it's 2.5 acres or less. It's highly recommended, and highly recommended, especially for these types of issues when we end up with legal non-conforming lots. But yeah, the property to the north, Mr. Romanek doesn't own that property, but that's a 1-acre lot. The Mr. Romanek's property is 2 acres.
So, going back to my initial question, there's no procedure the county has taken to notify towns or cities like the city of Prescott that something has at least been submitted and recorded?
We don't get those types of notifications. We don't get emails that said property is applying for a land division application or so forth.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Alex. Would the owner like to come up and speak? You don't have to if you don't want to.
Doesn't matter. Alex explained it pretty well to me.
Okay, so that's good. All right, so we'll move forward with the public portion of the meeting. Is there anybody in the public that would like to come up and speak on this item? So nobody from the public wants to speak. Is there any discussion on the commission? Anybody have any questions? Okay, then I would entertain a motion.
Commissioner, I move to recommend for approval to County Council of this request to rezone 2 acres of real property located approximately 612 foot north of the northeast corner of Red Cinder Road in Chino from AR5 Agricultural Residential 5-acre minimum zoning district to an SR2 single-family residential 2-acre minimum zoning district.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, any questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, Alex. Okay, so we're gonna move forward to item 6C. Consideration of possible action to approve ordinance 18-858 to rezone 2.71 acres of real property located approximately 375 feet east of the northwest corner of State Route 89 and Road 4 North intersection at 868 East Road 4 North from CH Commercial Heavy Zoning District to CL Commercial Light Zoning District. Owner of record is Corey and Robin Mendoza.
Chair Commission, before you have an item, Mr. Mendoza is requesting to rezone his property. The property is approximately 2.7 acres. I believe this went through planning and zoning early last year, 2007. And I'll just give a brief history about this property. So there's a property right there, fairly close to State Route 89. So it's probably, it was originally in the IR5 zoning district in 2010. Council adopted ordinance 10733 to rezone the property from the AR5 zoning district, agricultural residential 5-acre minimum, to the commercial heavy zoning district. At that point, Mr. Mendoza operated the property for his CNR trucking, which consist of doing maintenance and cleaning up the trucks on site. So that's why he requested the commercial heavy zoning district. As you recall, last year in April, CUP 17-001 came before you for a conditional use permit in order to allow the medical marijuana research facility on site on the commercial heavy zoning district with the conditions that are listed in the staff report. We will need to get into that. But Mr. Mendoza is in the process of moving his business to a property that the commission for an approval for earlier this year. As you recall, the site was south of 5 North on the east side of State Route 89. So that's where he's moving his business, his CNR trucking business. So he no longer needs the property to be under the zoning district. If you read part of the staff report, as far as the conditional use permit, which is a big question, what happens with this conditional use permit in the medical marijuana research facility? Well, the CUP is aesthetic from the zoning district. If commission forwards a recommendation of approval and council goes forward and approves the zone change of the site, the conditional use permit will remain the same. They've abided by those conditions that were set forth by the CUP last year, and they will need to do the same if underneath the CL zoning district. So again, the CUP that's on site is separate from the zoning district and the conditions and development standards set forth by that zoning district.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I'm a little confused. Is Mr. Mendoza moving his trucking company and the medical marijuana facility is taking over the entire property?
Commissioner Armstrong, that's correct. The CNR trucking business, once the property is rezoned to the commercial light zoning district, he is no longer allowed to run his business or what his business consists of, meaning that his business consists of maintenance on the trucks. He's no longer going to be able to do that, and so for probably the only thing he'll be able to do is probably store his trucks there. That's as far as he can go. But I believe the plan is to completely remove the CNR trucking business to the new site. The medical marijuana research facility will stay on site.
Are they going to expand? That's my question. Are they taking over the existing buildings and expanding that? So we're looking at more high fence concertina wire and no access to it at all?
If you mean expanding with a marijuana grower to the north?
Or to the west? Any the property that Mr. Mendoza's moving his trucks off of, are they now going to use that property as future medical marijuana uses?
The new property where he's locating to?
Nope, the old property where he's moving out of.
So let me clarify.
Okay.
Mr. Mendoza is moving his trucking business off this site completely and onto a site that we approved earlier this year as a commercial heavy
Right.
zone.
He's little by little he's gonna start moving it.
Okay, so the question is, the group of folks that are renting this now, the marijuana testing facility or experimental facility, they are going to utilize the rest of the property that Corey Mendoza vacated as part of their marijuana research business.
The CUP is specifically for the building itself. I mean, if they wanted to further expand the medical marijuana research facility to other buildings within the site, they will need to come back and amend that CUP.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did that,
Well, the project description on this, it says the existing tenant will be using the entire property for themselves.
Right. I mean, if it means storing vehicles or other equipment that has nothing to do with the medical marijuana research, then yeah, they can do that if it abides by the CL zoning district. As far as them expanding the marijuana research use itself, it's I believe the CUP is specifically for that building itself.
right.
As far as fencing and all that, if it's not a grow facility, they don't need to abide by those standards.
Okay, it's just, it identifies it as existing tenant, which is the medical marijuana people.
Right, well,
not
he'll be the
trucking
one
company.
solely using the property. I mean, he's still using the property.
Okay, so if they come in to do anything else, they're gonna come in and ask for a different CUP?
They're gonna have to amend the CUP, yeah.
Okay, got it, thanks.
I have a question. This is clarification for myself. The medical marijuana facility was able to go here because it was commercial heavy, correct? That was one of the few places in town that you could put a medical marijuana facility was in commercial heavy.
No, not at that time. I believe you're thinking of a growth facility.
Okay,
which is
so the
different.
growth facility and the experimental research facility are two different.
Are two different
Okay.
animals, yeah. At the time, legal counsel, the direction that we received was that he was okay to do the marijuana research facility under these conditions with a CUP, like I said, and the CUP is static from the zoning district.
Okay, because if they're gonna go to commercial light and it was part of the zoning ordinance for a growing facility, they would kind of take themselves out of the ballgame there.
Yeah, and before Mr. Mendoza submitted his application, we talked to legal counsel, make sure that it was all good and that it was all clear that what he was doing wasn't, was within the right parameters, within the land use law. And we received legal counsel's direction was that he can do it.
Did that clarify it?
Yes. The CUP has no effect on the zone change.
Now, Commissioner Armstrong, sorry, the CUP is static from the zoning district.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great,
So
thanks.
if and in the future, if it gets rezoned to pick whatever zoning district, if it goes back to commercial heavy, it's still the CUP is going to remain separate.
Okay.
So just a little more clarification. The marijuana facility can't expand outside of what the CUP is now, but the marijuana company can utilize the rest of the property to park vehicles or anything that's not associated with the marijuana research. Is that correct?
Exactly. If they wanted to have, let's say they wanted to expand the actual research facility to Mr. Mendoza, I believe he has. Where's that site plan? This is the site. By the way, this is the site plan he submitted. As you see, he has an office building here. He has a steel building here, and he has another building. He has a steel building in the back where he stores his vehicles. Let's say that this medical research facility was no longer, the footprint of it was not doable anymore. They wanted to expand to this building over here. Then they would need to come back and then amend that CUP.
Okay. And by removing this commercial heavy zoning and putting in a commercial light, in the future, it removes another spot for marijuana growing facilities, not this research facility.
As far as growers, again, we need to be specific. If it's research itself, let's say there's another site, then we will need to go through legal counsel and see what direction they give us. If it's a grower itself, like the property to the north is doing, then they will need to be under the
Commercial heavy.
the industrial zoning district.
good.
Right,
Yes.
Okay.
right.
That clarified it, I think. Thank you, Alex. Is the owner here?
The owner is not here.
Okay, so I guess he can't speak, so we'll move on to the next portion of the meeting, excuse me. Is anybody from the public like to come up and comment on this item?
By the way, sorry about that. Let me just give you a brief overview about, and it was in the staff report, but about the citizens review process because it's really important. We notified everybody within the 300-foot radius. We did not receive any communication from neighbors about concerns or issues. During the neighborhood meeting, we did not have any attendees as well.
Thank you for that clarification. So we'll close the public portion of the meeting. Is there any questions or comments or concerns from any of the commission? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to recommend approval to Town Council of this request to rezone approximately 2.71 acres of real property located approximately
375 feet east of the northeast corner of State Route 89 and Road 4 North, intersection at 868 East Road 4 North from CH Commercial Heavy Zoning to CL Commercial Light Zoning.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second.
Sorry, who's second?
I'll second.
Oh, thank you.
Any questions, comments, concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, Alex. Okay, moving on to item 6D, consideration of possible action to approve ordinance 18-856 to rezone 12.35 acres, approximately 500,
35.
it's big, of real property located approximately 0.25 miles east of southeast corner of North Road 1 West and West Road 4 North at 683 West Road 4 North from SR1 Single Family Residential 1 acre minimums to CL Commercial Light to allow wholesale nursery. Owner of record Donald K. Cox and Catherine Cox. Alex.
Chair Merritt, can you also present the next item, because I'm going to be presenting them concurrently?
You want to do, okay. Any problem with that, with anybody here?
You're conjoined.
Pardon?
You're conjoined.
Okay, so I will move forward also with item 6E, which is consideration of possible action to approve a conditional use permit, CUP 18-006 for 12.35 acres, approximately 535,788 square feet of real property located approximately 0.25 mile east of the southeast corner of North Road 1 West and West Road 4 North at 683 West Road 4 North to allow the existing single-family residential use within the commercial light zoning district. Again, owner of record Donald K. Cox and Catherine Cox. Alex.
Chair Commission, before you have two items for Mrs. Cox. She is requesting to rezone her property from the current SR1 zoning district to the CL zoning district, and concurrently make the single-family residential use into conformance within the CL zoning district. So Mrs. Cox property is located approximately 1/4 mile east of the southeast corner of North Road 1 West and West Road 4 North at 683 West Road 4 North. So commissioners that are familiar with the area, there's a Prescott Valley Growers right here, which is also owned by Mrs. Cox. She owns and operates this nursery here, and it's also a wholesale nursery, meaning that there's no outside sales, there's no customers coming in and out. It's strictly as a grower and a wholesale. They also have another nursery in Prescott Valley, I believe, and anything that's ordered from this property is shipped over to Prescott Valley. So Mrs. Cox also owns this property, the subject property. She wants to do something fairly similar, if not the exact same thing as that's being done in her property to the east. She wants to also make this most of this vacant lot into a wholesale nursery. As you saw in the site plan that was submitted, the site is going to reflect exactly basically what the property to the east looks like, meaning that there's going to be an area for greenhouses, and the property is going to be completely buffered by trees surrounding it. And then this area is where she grows her trees and her shrubs. So the property to the west, again, is going to basically reflect or mirror exactly what's being done in the property to the east. As you see here, that property is going to be completely surrounded by trees to buffer any residential properties that are here, and even those properties vacant to the south, whenever it is developed, the buffer will be there as well. Why the CUP? Sorry, why the CL, and why not another zoning district? Looking at the code, nurseries are only identified in the CL zoning district. It identifies it as indoor sales and outdoor sales of nursery stock. The closest thing within the AR5 zoning district is probably greenhouses. So we did a little bit of research. Give me just a minute. We have, besides Mrs. Cox property to the east, Prescott Valley Growers, we have 3 other properties, or I should say 2 other properties that are active right now. Chino Nursery, which is east of Town Hall, Development Service Building, and we have Earthworks that's along State Route 89. Both of these properties are Chino Nursery is a CL zoning district, and Earthworks is a commercial heavy zoning district. So we're just following the precedents of the CL zoning district. Also, this gives Mrs. Cox the opportunity, even though her plan isn't to do it, it gives her the option of, in the future, if she wants to do outside sales and open it up to the general public, she can do so under the CL zoning district. I'm not exactly sure if we guided her through the AR5 zoning district, if she would be able to do that. So we're keeping it open to her for the future and her future plans. The conditional use permit that we're requesting, as stated in the staff report, she does have a residence currently on site. It's being used as a caretaker's unit. There's another structure, which is an accessory structure. Let's just say that it's not a residence. It's not a habitable building. But she is planning to, in the near future, build another residence on site. The CL zoning district allows the single-family residential use under a conditional use permit. Therefore, we're requesting the conditional use permit concurrent with the request zone change to have the current residents and the future residents in conformance under the CL zoning district, so we don't have a headache of legal nonconformity in the future. I want to just touch base on the citizens review process. At the neighborhood meeting, we had, I believe, 4 property owners that attended the meeting, and as you read in the staff report, one of them was concerned about the retail portion of it. He had issues about customers coming in and out, the increase of traffic in the area, and he also questioned about this property creating a pattern of future commercial properties further going along the west of the property. Staff clarified to them, as the Mrs. Cox, that the intent was not to open it to the public. But we did clarify that if council does approve the CL zoning district, that this property basically is approved for anything that's approved by right within the commercial light zoning district. Even though Mrs. Cox isn't planning to put a shopping center there or a grocery store there, once you rezone any property to whatever zoning district is being requested, you're basically rezoning there with giving them a window that any permitted uses within that zoning district would be allowed. We also assured that the gentleman that arose that issue about the commercial property. If we look at the general plan, Mrs. Cox's the subject property Mrs. Cox owns, this has a land use designation of commercial multifamily residential, as you can see here. I zoom in on the general plan map. Mrs. Cox's property is the last property that the residents and the community and all the stakeholders decided this is the endpoint of commercial multifamily residential uses. This is where it ends. So that gives us assurance that if this property is rezoned to the commercial use, that it's not gonna open up the floodgates for commercial uses going further along the west, the subject property. I also did receive a letter from a gentleman that couldn't attend today. He works out of state, but basically he raised the same concerns that he did not want basically a commercial property next to him. And that when he bought the property, that wasn't his intent to about commercial property. And that he didn't want any increase of generated of traffic around that area. So I told him that I would let the commission know what his grievances were. Other than that, I do not believe there was anybody else that raised any issues. So those are the biggest issues that were raised by the residents that surround this property. Staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission, based on our research that we have done, and based on the way that Mrs. Cox has been handling her business to the side to the east, it's really, she keeps maintenance to it. The trees surrounding the property, they'll give it a aesthetic, pleasing look to it. And if her site is gonna look, this site is gonna look exactly like it, I really don't see the negative impact it's gonna have on the abutting property, residential properties. The tree aligning, the properties to the east, to the west, sorry, is gonna serve as a buffer to them. If they're using that just as a wholesale, I don't really see the negative impact on that. So staff again recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to Town Council to adopt Ordinance 18-856, rezoning 12.35 acres of real property from the current SR1 zoning district to the CL zoning district. And concurrently, staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission also forward a recommendation of approval to Town Council for a conditional use permit to make the residential use allowed within that zone, the CL zoning district. The applicant is here, Mrs. Cox is here. If the commission does have any questions for myself or for her that she may answer.
Anybody have questions for Alex while he's at the podium?
Alex, the north end of this property has got a very large water retention basin, and I don't see on the site plan of what they intend to do with it, about what's gonna happen to the water retention area.
I believe Mrs. Cox can answer that question. If it's intended to be controlling the drainage around the area, Public Works Director Frank Marbury is also here. If that's the intent of it, she's gotta leave it the way it is, as a retention basin.
Mr. Armstrong?
I'm just a considerable question. You got trucks taking this product from there to Prescott Valley. So I'm guessing that these trucks will exit your property on Road 4 North, proceed to 89 and go south there. What kind of volume of trucking are you expecting when this process is up and running?
Why don't we bring her up?
Bring her up,
Yeah,
please.
so any more questions for Alex? One second. Are we all done with Alex for right now?
For right now.
Okay.
Right now.
If you would have it, make way for the owner, we'll talk to them and see if we can get some of these questions answered.
Frank, do you wanna talk about the drainage?
If I could. Real quick, Chair and Commission, Frank Marbury, Public Works Director. Just want to clarify on the basin there. I believe that's probably some sort of old farm pond or water catchment. As far as using it as a design detention facility, that's not my understanding of what was there for any development plans. So any future development as far as detention or retention would follow any future development plans that are engineered and designed in the future, not necessarily that particular one.
Okay, 'cause the property directly west of it with a long driveway that goes to the back, I had looked at that in the past, and it also along that long driveway has a huge water retention basin on the
It's
west side of it. So I didn't know if there was a canal that went back and forth between the two of them, if that was one large basin off of 4 North, or
well,
whether it was just individual properties that wanted a pond.
yeah, and that's the trick. You call it a retention basin, and I'm saying there's no engineered plans
Okay.
for a design volume of water to be held. So I
Okay.
think it might just be what I would call an old farmer's pond that they try and catch all the water they can for the cattle. So it was nothing engineered or designed
Okay.
for any particular volume.
All right.
Maybe just a comment, if they build a new house on this property, they're gonna have to control the drainage per the drainage codes for the town of Chino Valley, which would enter and exit at the same points and control on the property. Is that correct?
Correct. They would have to follow all applicable building and town codes.
'Cause the water drains.
Right, for any building structure, depending on the use and the code
Right, any-
appropriate for
Any
that.
building, not necessarily a house, but any building that would go on that property, it has to follow all the proper drainage codes.
Right.
Okay. All right,
Thank
any
you.
other questions for Mr. Marbury while he's up at the podium? Okay, if the owner would like to step up and speak, Commissioner Armstrong, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm worried about what kind of truck volume will be coming and going from the facility?
Yes, sir. Good evening, council. Right now, our trucks, we don't have any semis actually that we own. Our trucks are the 24-foot, either stake beds or vans. And probably running about 2 trucks a week out of there back to our Prescott Valley facility.
Okay.
It's, we try to fill them up each time to make it worthwhile. It's not a huge volume really, and occasionally we'll have a load come in from somewhere else, but that's been like several times a year. It's not a real regular thing.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Would you be comfortable with AR5 zoning, or did staff specifically recommend CL?
Staff recommended CL.
Okay.
I believe it was to keep consistent with what we have next door. I know that says AR5 what we're on, but we're actually CL there.
You're actually CL there?
Uh-huh.
That's an area that Mrs. Cox.
Sorry about that. That's an error right there. That the property adjacent to it with the red is CL. It's a CL zoning district.
Yeah, just for the record, this came before the commission, I don't remember the date, but they came before the commission to get this facility. It was bare land like this. And so this development that you're looking at has happened since the folks received their zoning. I mean, they take very nice care of their property there.
So your zoning is
Okay.
not AR5, but it is CL?
It
CL.
is CL.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I couldn't remember, but I was on the commission when it was approved, and I couldn't remember if that was AR5 or CL, but that's clarified. That makes things a lot clearer there. Any other questions or comments?
So we're looking at 2 houses with 1 acre minimum?
Correct.
The project description says you're
Correct.
gonna build another house on there?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question for Alex. We don't have.
Thank you, sir.
Alex, I'm not seeing the logic in saying that a wholesale nursery is not agriculture, because whether they're growing trees and the public is not allowed there is no different from somebody growing corn, wheat, and they're gonna harvest it. And so basically, they're growing trees. And
Right.
so whether you're going wheat, corn, soybeans, it's wholesale. They're gonna sell it to a supplier. So I'm not quite sure why we're saying that this is commercial. Now, if they wanted commercial sometime in the future for, for coming on site, for attracting commercial visitors, I would think that would be appropriate. For earthworks, that's more industrial. They have, you know, they have rock, they have all these other things, and they're attracting the public. And for the other Chino nursery, I don't think it's wholesale. I think it's retail, isn't it? Yeah.
It's wholesale retail.
Okay, so I'm just, I think staff needs to explore this a little bit, because whether you're growing trees or whatever, it would be acceptable in the AR5, to the best of my knowledge. I have no problem, if they have CL, I have no problem going with CL in this instance, but I would hate to see that staff is, you know, directing others that they can't have a nursery unless they rezone when they have agricultural use at the present time. So we might want to discuss this further, or with the attorney. The city attorney, town attorney, that is.
The zoning administrator made an interpretation of the code. We were following precedents that have been set for other nurseries. That was the zoning administrators and development service director at that time gave direction that what Mrs. Cox was describing, the CL zoning district, was more fitting.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Alex. I would entertain a motion. Oh,
Chair
wait.
Merritt,
Whoa, sorry.
Public hearing?
I got ahead of myself. Is there anybody here that would like to speak? Please step up to the podium. I apologize for jumping ahead.
Good evening, Commission. My name is William Kidd. I live at 825 West Road 4 North. I'm not adjacent to this parcel, but I'm one over from it. I'm here tonight to oppose this particular rezoning idea. Not, and I will start out by saying not necessarily because Ms. Cox wants to put in an additional nursery. I wouldn't have an issue with that. My concern is that, as Mr. Armour pointed out, once that zoning is changed to commercial, it stays commercial. She sells that lot. It's now a restaurant, a strip mall, whatever you want to put in there, okay? Now, there is a light industrial lot where her current nursery stands. All the surrounding property of both those parcels are residential areas. The map that was shown up here that shows the commercial going back to her property may be current, but the one that's on the current Chino Valley website shows that the commercial line, if you will, basically follows Bacon Lane and comes down where that gray line is on the top next to the purple circle. That's Bacon Lane, and that line comes straight down and follows the commercial property along Highway 89. I don't see any reason for rezoning this property. As this gentleman, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, pointed out, it would seem to me that AR5 would still be appropriate for the nursery at that location. Again, I think there might be another way to address this issue. I'm not an attorney, I'm not a city planner, and I don't sit on the planning commission. However, it might be conceivable to issue some type of conditional use permit. That way the house can already be there because it's an SR1 now, and you could use a conditional use permit to put the nursery in, but that would not allow future commercial development if that nursery should ever go away. The other point is maybe, if not a conditional use permit, possibly some type of variance that the council and the commission can authorize. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. So, Alex, given what this gentleman said here, which map is correct here?
Was he questioning my map right here, the general
Yes,
plan
sir.
map? If you look at, if you direct yourself by this street right here, this little loop, that's within that subdivision that's to the west. All right, I have the same one right here. And then there's this street right here, and just keep an eye on this street right here and these streets. It'll kind of give us direction on where we're at. If you see this general plan, sorry, this map right here, or this map right here really doesn't, Vicky, do we have access to the internet here?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me pull up the interactive map, which will give us a bigger view of it.
Thank you. Ma'am, you will get your chance to speak. I just wanted to clarify this while we were on the subject.
While he's pulling that up, I have a question for you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I wasn't here at the last meeting, but are we following through with the study session and the voting session? Or was this item considered at the last meeting for a study session and we're voting on it tonight?
This item here?
Yes.
No, it was not brought up at the last meeting that I recall.
So are we changing our policy now that we're gonna be doing everything at one meeting again?
I think that's at the, my understanding is at the direction of the head of the planning
here.
department, what comes to us as far as what's ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I don't know that was brought up. But then, I've slept since then, so I could be wrong.
Mr. Chairman, just to save some time, if you'd like this map, you're welcome to. It's got a date on it when I printed it out, 10/22 of 18.
Alex should be able to come up with the latest thing that the town has here. I appreciate that, thank you.
All right, so here's the general plan, sorry, and just to clarify, we've talked about the general plan map before. The general plan map doesn't define property lines. It's called the general plan for that reason. We're talking about in general.
Correct.
But if we want to talk in detail, Tilia Place right here, this little loop, right? And then we go to Crystal Street Lane with this little loop right here. So this little loop goes this way, and if you want to run it, goes here right where that east property line is at. Same little loop is right here, and if you go, the west property line right, or the east property line right there.
Okay, so this red area here is off the general plan,
Exactly.
and it's designated as possible.
Commercial, multifamily, residential, and it ends basically where Mrs. Cox lot ends. Right.
So it does conform to the general plan.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'm wondering how the gentleman got that other map then?
He's looking at the zoning map.
Oh, the zoning map.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
The zoning map obviously shows it as, right, that's the zoning map he's showing, and that shows the property with
There-
the
We're
current-
talking two different maps here. One is a general plan map, which is very generalized, and the other one is a
Right.
zoning map, which is very specific.
Just to inform the gentleman, the general plan map is a 20-year plan set by the town. Okay. Right. So what you're showing us is the zoning map, and you're correct. The property is SR1 right now. It is in yellow.
What I was pointing out is that if you want to look at the end of the commercial zoning is over there where the red is on his map, that all those CHs and CLs and CHs are. That, the end of those property lines is the existing end of all the commercial zoning property.
That's correct, and it says that on that map.
Correct. And the only exception is that one right there that says AR5, that it's actually CL.
Seal, correct,
Everything else around that is residential.
yes. But on the general plan map, which was the bright red one, it's the town's intent at some point that those areas may develop to commercial, light, or multifamily residential as part of the general plan. So did that get clarified at all?
Yes.
All
So-
right,
Any conversation from the
he's got to come up and talk.
audience has to come
I
up
know.
because it's not on record.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. I'm kind of breaking some rules here tonight. Okay, so more discussion.
Matt, would you like to come up?
Good evening. My name is Cameron Kidd. I live at 825 West Road 4 North. And I am opposed to the zoning change on this. We have discussed, or the commission has discussed, my main reason, which is that while there is no objection to the nursery as long as it is a nursery, things change in the future. What's intended today can change tomorrow. Things can change due to opportunities, due to tragedies, due to all sorts of things. Or plans can just change. And if that is zoned commercial light, it opens up that property to a variety of uses, including but not limited to retail, restaurants, pawn shops, business and professional, gas station, hotel, hospital, shooting range, billiard parlor, veterinary clinic. And there's a number of other uses also permitted. Once it would be zoned commercial light, then there could also be a conditional use permit issued for an auto mall or drive-in theater, all of which are non-conforming uses to that neighborhood. It is a residential neighborhood. And this commission has done a lot in the recent past to reiterate that that is a residential neighborhood. There was recently a property that wanted commercial light zoning, and it wound up being SR1. And the commission and the town council were both very clear that that was the appropriate use for that neighborhood. Now, I don't like to object to things without proposing perhaps a solution. I think a variance would be the legally acceptable resolution to this. It would allow the nursery. It would allow that to expand and continue, but it would remove the future threat of commercial use there that is non-conforming to the neighborhood. And I would really implore you to follow that path or a conditional use permit to allow that. The nursery is fine. There are occasions when I can't say for sure, but it appears to be their audible security alarm goes off for days at a time, nights at a time, which is very disturbing in the neighborhood. I think that can be resolved. I don't think that's a permanent issue. But if that's zoned commercial light, that is a permanent issue in the neighborhood. And I would implore you to please find a solution to allow Ms. Cox her nursery without changing it to commercial zoning. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Okay.
Mr. Commissioner, I'd like to have some guidance as to whether we're going to be going to, we're going to have controversial items in the future. And if we're reversing our policy, I would like to know, because I'd like to have some type of consistency on how we review these projects in terms of we're going to have a study session, voting session, or we can just drop these unannounced to the Planning Commission that we're varying our policy. I would like to discuss with staff a little bit further the use and the zoning administrator's policy of saying that we need CL here, because in any agricultural zone, anywhere, you're going to have barns, you're going to have heavy equipment, and that's part of an agricultural operation. And I would feel more comfortable in proposing that we continue this item to the next meeting so that perhaps even I can explore this with staff and perhaps town council.
Alex, there seems to be a little bit of issue with this. I think that probably it would be wise to reconsider and explore this again. We can always come back to it. I see the map is a little confusing when it says AR5, but the commercial ability is already very close to these residential things, and according to the general plan, it's intended for at some point that this
Right,
could
the
be commercial.
property, even though it says AR5, it is CL's commercial light that went through council
Correct.
and then got approved.
That's
we
correct.
We could, in the meantime, if we continue the item, staff can discuss with legal counsel different options of what we can do where Mrs. Cox gets to do her nursery. What I'm thinking though is that if we go the route of rezoning it to AR5, and in the future she decides to open it up to outside sales, she's not gonna have the option of doing that. I don't know if, again, we need to talk to legal counsel and see if maybe we do a CL with and approve it with a site plan, and when it's attached to the site plan, she'll be stuck with a nursery, or if we could do it as a condition of approval that only nursery stock will be allowed under the CL zoning district. There's different ways we can go about it, but I need to see if we're doing it underneath the law.
Okay, and
The existing nursery that's CL zone, she can make sales off of it, correct?
If she wanted to, yes, but right now she just has it as wholesale. If in the future she wants to open it up to the public for outdoor sales, she could do so
She
underneath.
could do that and
under
leave
the
the
CL
west
zoning
property as strictly
Right.
growing and
And
just
and
make sales off of the east property.
Exactly, and I believe that's the reason why the staff at that time, when Mrs. Cox came in, they recommended that they go with the CL zoning district.
Okay.
well, having heard some of the issues here, I think it would be wise for us to carry this to a future date. Maybe come back with some other creative ideas to get both sides where they want to go, because it doesn't seem to me that it's really that far apart. We just need to have it clear.
Right.
And again, this is a side note. It's very helpful for us to get a look at some of these things before we're stuck here trying to make a decision. And so in the future, and I know this isn't something that you've had control over, but in the future it would be helpful, because you have been doing it to a certain degree of warning us in advance of some things like this. Not you personally, but the staff. So, yes,
Additional
ma'am.
question. In regards to 6E, the conditional use permit for a second residence, if we switched it to AR5, is that going to permit a second residence there?
No, it won't, but she'll be limited to the square footage of the actual residence. Under the AR5 zoning district, she cannot go above 1,200 square feet. Under the current zoning district, she cannot go above 800 square feet. I believe the residence that Mrs. Cox is planning is gonna be above 1,200 square feet. Under the CL zoning district, it's strictly, it doesn't have a limit on it. Let's just say that. It just states it as single-family residence, plural.
Alex, so if that residence stays, and how many square feet is it again?
Under the current zoning district?
I mean, what it is right now?
Under the current zoning district, the SR1 zoning district allows a guest home that cannot exceed 800 square feet. I believe Mrs. Cox is planning to have a residence bigger than that. Yes, ma'am.
No. If, not as the SR1, but if it gets switched to AR5,
It'd be 1,200 square feet, the
They-
guest home.
they still couldn't have two houses
Yes,
there.
ma'am. The Commissioner Meadows, the AR5 zoning district allows for the single-family residence or the main structure, doesn't have a limit of the square footage of that structure, and the guest home, that one has a limit of 1,200 square feet.
1,200, okay.
So the primary structure is already there. We're considering that the primary structure or the main residence. So the next residence is gonna be defined as a guest home. So that one will need to stay under 1,200 square feet.
All right, so I think we should move this to a future meeting as soon maybe as you can get it back on the agenda. but also with some resolution to some of these questions, maybe some other creative ways to do things.
Could I maybe,
Mr. Marbury?
if I could step in maybe as a department head, staff level, just to maybe clarify some of this, and Alex, I think, has done a great job, but just to clarify from a staff perspective, I think the reason why it wasn't brought in as a study session item is probably because staff, with the consultation of legal, thought this was a pretty clear-cut recommendation for the CL zone, but recognizing that the commission, of course, has authority to defer this if they want to look at a little further, then that is your right, and we respect that, and we would honor that, and give you whatever information you need. But as far as why this maybe wasn't presented as a study session item in the first place, probably wasn't expected to have this many questions, and we apologize for maybe not having that foresight for that.
That's understandable.
So,
I just don't see, and I thank you very much for your explanation. That helped out a lot. It doesn't seem to be so imminent that we got to slam it through tonight one way or the other. I think a little more information and a little bit more studying on it will come back with some good.
exactly, and that is why, in my opinion, the council's appointed you. So,
All right, thank
Commissioner, I make a motion that we tabled this for further investigation.
Second.
you, sir. All in favor?
I'm sorry,
Aye.
who's second? I looked down.
I did.
I can't see you.
That's to
Alright.
clarify that we're tabling 6D and 6E.
And 6D and 6E. I would like to see it come back as quick as you can, though it's not fair to everybody to keep them hanging.
I believe that from here to December, I believe it's the 8th. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the next scheduled meeting is, I'm pretty sure that we can get an answer from legal counsel to see what direction we could take it to. There's no issue with that.
First Tuesday of the month?
Yeah, the first Tuesday.
First Tuesday of the month in
Can't be
December.
the
I don't,
8th then.
I don't have a calendar in front of
I'm
me,
just saying
sorry.
it can't be the 8th.
Right.
because
That would be,
That would be the second Tuesday. There's only 7 days in a
Right,
week.
sorry about that. I have action items for that day, and I guess that's town council.
Hang on a minute.
Otherwise, you're just gonna tell us when to show up, I'm sure. Okay, so those items are closed. We're gonna move to item 7, non-public hearing action items. I don't know that we have any of those this evening. So we will move to discussion items. Alex, is there any discussion items tonight?
No, there isn't.
Okay. So we come to the public portion of the meeting, public comments. Call of the public is an opportunity for the public to address the commission on any issue within the jurisdiction of the commission that is not on the agenda. Public comment is encouraged. Individuals are limited to speak for 3 minutes. Commission action taken as a result of the public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter or scheduling the matter for further consideration and a decision at a later date, or responding to criticism. Would anybody like to step up and visit with us? Okay, we're gonna close that portion of the meeting, and I would seek a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We are all ready to get out of here. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, but can you tell me again who first and second? I can't
Aye.
see.
Every person here
I
but me
first.
said yes. so.
And then who's second?
I believe.
We both
Commissioner
said it
Bacon.
at the same
Commissioner
time.
Thank you, Commission, for your time.
I don't want to have to correct it next time either.
no, my motion, sorry, is about tabling